Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. A very warm day in Adelaide. I think it's going to get to 35, probably more than that, maybe about 38 degrees today. Today I'm going to share with you something I have shared before, way back when I first started this YouTube channel, when I talked about how I got into photography and some of the cameras I used along the way. And the very first one I really started me off in photography was this little Retina that I'm going to show you in a minute. And so this title today is probably something like The Retina Way. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this book I've got here about the camera, show it to you a little bit. The original video I did is not very sharply focused. I don't know whatever happened to that original one as to what I was filming it on or whether I didn't load it up properly. However, I'm just going to show you close-ups of this little Kodak camera again today and show you how it works. And then I'm going to hook in and show you some photos that I took when I first started out, up in 1970, when I first started using this camera. It's when I got hooked on photography. So this is a little camera. I'll just hold it up here. It's a Kodak Retina. It's a bellows camera. So when you press this little button down here, it's very chunky and solid. Press this little button down here and it opens up. And you've got a little bellows on the side there. I think you can probably see that bellows on the side there. And then you've got all your controls here. And the controls work either way, actually. So it's a totally manual camera. There's no exposure meter in this. There's no split image rangefinder. There is only your knowledge. There is on, oh, sorry, I'll stand up again. There is on the bottom here a depth of field scale, and you can use that to work out what aperture you should be using to get reasonable sharpness across a certain depth of field using that. And so that's what primarily we used in the old days to get our focus. It was a bit of guesswork. You had to guess the distance. Of course, you could use something like this, which is a little rangefinder, which would sit up on top of the camera like so. There's a split image in that, and you used to be able to read out the distance and set the distance accordingly on here. I just played with it a minute ago. I've used this before, but I've forgotten how to use it, so I can't really demonstrate it to you, but you can still get those. And maybe you could sit it out here on a bracket, because that won't fit on that hot shoe there, so you'd have to have another hot shoe bracket out here and set it up out here and use that. But you could still find one of those and use those. So there you go. Takes 35mm film. It's very chunky. It's all metal. It's a little bit pockmarked on the back. You can see some of the rivets and things coming through on the back there. And this is one of the very early models. There are 22 models all up in the book that I'm going to show you in a minute of the Kodak Retina cameras. This is one of the early ones. Now, I've got a film in here at the moment. So to take a shot, I'd have to look at up in here, and I work out that the distance is very close here. So there's a little knob down the bottom here, which slides it in and out. So you might be able to see that sliding the whole lens diameter in and out there. You might be able to see that moving. So anyway, I'm this close, so it's let's have a look. If I come back here, it's about 3 feet. So that's probably about the closest focusing distance I can do. And if I wanted to set it on the aperture, I would need to set that manually. And there's a little lever under here, which if you look, you'll probably see me shifting the aperture. See, I'm shifting the aperture. There's a little lever. Now that works this way. You've got the same lever up here. So you've got another set of settings up the top here. So you can actually see, you can see them actually shifting there as well. So not only that, it shifts up there as well, and you've got a distance setting and whatever. So it's quite useful. Whenever you take a shot on this, you've got to rewind it after the shot, or you'll get a double exposure. And then you've got to have this little lever here, just there, see there alongside my finger. That's in the advance. So you're moving forward, but when you want to rewind the film, you've got to move it back to that R position and then start rewinding with this knob here to rewind the film back. So I'm going to take a shot here now, hopefully. Now, I've got to cock the shutter now. I'm just going to waste a shot, but see, there's a little shutter there. I've got to cock that there, put that down. And now for some reason, probably because I haven't wound it on, now it should come down. Nope, maybe not. Maybe we've got to do this over here first. That's right, we've got to, sorry, we cocked the shutter over here. I've forgotten what I'm doing. We cocked the shutter over here, and now it's cocked, and now I should better come back here. Whoa. And I'll hold it up here. I'll just look, and you see, you listen for the shutter. Did you hear that? So now we should be able to wind it on again, except that I think we've almost come to the end of the film. So I might have to rewind that. I'm going to send it back now. I think it won't cock again. So I'm going to try and just rewind it for you. We go back this way. We're rewinding the film now. Now, this is what I cut my teeth on back in 1970 when I first went up to the Northern Territory with my workplace. And it was my dad's camera originally. And he gave me some very rudimentary lessons on how to use it when I first got it. And basically, I set the shutter speed on 100th of a second. And I used either f4 or f8, depending on whether it was bright light or shade. They weren't really optimum settings. I was using ISO 25 for the film. It was Kodachrome it was. You'll see some of the slides in a minute after I took up there then. Taking a while to rewind, isn't it? You haven't got those fast lever things that you had before. Now it's coming, I think it's coming loose. Let me sit down here and do it. You wouldn't want to be using one of these doing a wedding, would you? Now, it's got to the end here now. So what's happening? Let's see what happens when I open it up. There's a little lever here. Little lever there, so we've got to open that there. And then we should be able to open it. There we go. So there's the film in there. And you'll see it's stuck here. I couldn't get it past that last notch, but I'll just pull that out from there. Should be able to get it out. Now I've got it out. Pull that up there, pull that out, and there out comes the film. So now it's all ready. So then I'll just wind this film all the rest of the way into the canister. There you go. So 24 exposures on that. Hopefully they might come out. I've probably had that film in there for about 10 years, so who knows. So there you go. That's the little Kodak Retina. And you can fit a flash to these. And that shuts it up again. And of course, each time you take a shot, you've got to wind. See the little counter up the top there? You've got to wind it on and you set it up to I think to 0 first of all, or one shot first of all, and then it winds you all the way through to number 36. In those days, of course, we had 20 shots on a film and 36 on a film, I think, and sometimes you could get 10 on a film. So that's a little camera. So the Retina way. There you go. This is a little book. You should get hold of this if you're keen on these cameras. I'll just read a little bit from it. The folding retinas. So this is a folding retina, and I've got this one. I think this could be a 1B or a 1A, and I've also got a 3C, which you can put interchangeable lenses on, which is a beautiful precision folding Kodak Retina, and I'll do a review on that one day. And the other one is a more conventional looking camera in a nice leather case. It's one of the ones in the middle here somewhere. Here it says in this here for you, the camera for you, throwing aside some photos. The camera is rarely a mere tool. It would be a pity if photographic techniques were to become a completely standardized process for turning out uniform results all the time. So we have many camera types of different sizes. We use filters and all sorts of gadgets, which employed in various ways and combinations lead to different styles of photography. Strictly speaking, we cannot, of course, talk about the photographic style of a camera as such. Only the man who uses it can develop a style. But this is inevitably the result of a photographer working with a particular tool, and being such a combination, it will emerge as a style of expression. When we consider buying a camera, this is still the same as it was when this was written. Therefore, we ought not only to consider how much we can afford to spend on it, but also which camera suits us best. And the answer should not be a particular make, excuse me, but rather a type. In other words, we have to decide whether to go in for a large, a medium, or a small camera, which it should have a direct or reflex, or whether it should have a direct or reflex focusing finder and what technique it needs. Then look at the different makes and prices of cameras within each group. These little cameras were called miniature cameras back in the day, and they were all the rage for a while. And Mr. Kodak, of course, brought out a wonderful book here called How to Take Good Pictures, and talking a lot about other styles of cameras as well as these little ones here. So there you go. I might just pause the screen here, and then I'll add some more commentary and find some slides for you to look at and make some commentary as we go. Excuse me. On when I first used this up in Darwin and in Alice Springs in the Northern Territory, and I was very much an amateur, didn't know what I was doing, so some of them are exposed okay, some of them are not, a lot of them are out of focus. But you'll get the idea, but it got me hooked on photography. So there you go. So I'm just going to finish this little bit here and add on to this in a minute when I select the photos I'm going to share with you. Okay, so I'll just give you a running commentary as we go, as these things come into view. And there we are, there's my car, Toyota Corona, loaded on the GAN train to go to Alice Springs. And then I was going to drive all the way up to Darwin. So that was in Alice Springs on a wet and rainy day, sitting up on Billy Goat Hill, looking down the main street from Billy Goat Hill in Alice Springs, looking at the local oval down there. These are all taken on the Retina. Now this is going out towards Stanley Chasm, I think, and there's Stanley Chasm. And had a look there. This is from 2 trips, and then this is when my wife and I were first in Alice Springs on the way up. This is in Ricketts Park, I think it was, or something like that. That was Albert Jamajura. These are the famous twin gums that I don't think they exist anymore. That was our house in Darwin, and a little Toyota Corona there, and that was looking out from the balcony on the side into the backyard. And that's a modern version in 2011 of what the house still looked like. Now this is back on the Mary River. That's me. We went. That was before my wife came up. That's myself and my friend Greg Stanford, who you've seen on this channel a few times. And that's at Bachelor Post Office, a scene in one of the local rivers with a friend Les catching fish. This is Darwin Harbour. And this is down at Diana Beach, I think it is. And that's a remora suckerfish that we went out on a boat one day and that was caught. That might have been the boat we were on. And although I don't think it was. So we went on a trip on across Darwin Harbour on that sailing ship you saw before, and these are a few shots we took on the way. We ended up at Mica Beach on the other side of Darwin Harbour, which was a fabulous little spot. And this is just some beachside shots and seaside shots in Fanny Bay in Darwin Harbour. This is down at Rapid Creek, I think it is. There was a silhouette shot I took on my first ever trip up to Darwin. And this is my friend Peter on the lookout there at Lee Point. More Darwin Harbour shots. Now we went on a trip with a football trip to Bathurst Island to play football. This is coming in by the air on a small plane. We were the first mainland, apart from St Mary's, team to go and visit Bathurst Island and play a game of footy. And this is what it looked like back then. If you've seen that film, The Top End Wedding, this is where the Top End Wedding finished up, where they had the wedding. Up here in this area here on Bathurst Island. That's a strait between the two places. Here's some guys playing cards. And that was as we were coming in to land, and we had quite a welcoming committee there. And you'll see when we left we didn't have such a big committee. Now that's the oval. There wasn't much grass on it. And this is the grandstand. And it was a momentous occasion. We were an A-grade team and we played all these young 15-year-olds. And most of them didn't have shoes on. They beat us by about 20 goals. That was having lunch before the game. We were supposedly a top team from the mainland. A couple of the guys having a go on the trampoline. You can see the planes in the background there. Joe Smith presenting a best player trophy to the guy who we played against, and that's our best player receiving thing. Now, Darwin was raided in the Second World War, of course, so there were lots of old wrecks of planes around the place in some of those areas up there. Now, this was the farewell committee taking off. This is coming back in towards Darwin now. That's the Darwin drive-in. That's the oval where I used to play footy down there. And this is one of the, because football was a big thing when I was up there. I was playing footy up there. And this is just one of the local under-15 matches, most of them not wearing shoes. And this is during our B grade team, I think. They were playing in a premiership team. And that's the Gardens Oval, which is not always used for footy these days up there, I don't think. There's some young lads running out for play on the oval where we used to train. And yeah, this is back on the Gardens Oval again. So this was finals time. Our team wasn't in the finals, but some of the other, St Mary's and Waratahs and Darwin were in the finals. This is St Mary's playing here. I'm not sure who they're playing. St Mary's playing probably Nightcliff, I think, there. There's some of the crowd sitting around in the old Gardens Oval. This is Cormula College, where our footy coach, he was the sports master there. Now we're back in the outback again. Tropic of Capricorn, Alligator Creek. I used to like photographing signs, and I still do. And this is on a road out into the escarpment area, out towards the Mary River. This is at Fog Dam, little creek there. Some guys on their motorbikes coming into Darwin. Kamali Creek, I think this was here. This is the Adelaide War Memorial, so it's war cemetery where lots of people were buried there who had perished during the Second World War. This is the Daly River crossing. There's people out there in the background there swimming and on rafts, but you wouldn't do that now. There's lots of crocodiles there in these days, and it's quite dangerous. This is out in the bush again, some cockatoos. This is a disused quarry. My brother's sitting over there, and it was a popular swimming spot. This is flying back into Darwin. This is I was on a rubber mattress there. I wouldn't do that now with crocodiles. This was out at Rapid Creek, I think. And this was flying back into Darwin, seeing those ovals we saw before. Sorry, that's now approaching the Bathurst Island again. That was a strait between the two islands. Now this is on the way home, I think, out near the Devil's Marbles. Going all over the place here. I didn't edit this very well. And but I'll just let you sit back and watch, and maybe I'll make a comment every now and then. That was the Adelaide River War Cemetery there. Rainy day in the hostel where I was staying. That's the Daly River crossing, where all the crocodiles are now. The Devil's Marbles, they've got a different Aboriginal name for that now. This is one of those creeks where it can be dangerous with crocs everywhere now. On the road into Darwin there, it's the old Star Picture Theatre. It's now a shopping centre. That's a little friend of mine standing alongside an anthill. That's back to the Daly River crossing again. You could drive jeeps and four-wheel drives across there. Not sure where that was. This is at UDP Falls. This was a spot where they filmed part of Crocodile Dundee, the movie. I think that could be the Fink River, all dried up. We are going over the place. This is watching the hockey at Alloa, I think it was, in the old days. Hockey was a big sport in Darwin. It probably still is. It's back in Alice Springs, looking at Alice Springs from Billy Goat Hill. I think that's out at Rapid Creek again. This is the Manton River Dam, which was back then the main supply for the Darwin's water supply. Out on the harbour again. This is at Fog Dam, and I went camping one weekend with my friend Doug in his little camper van, and it was very eerie sitting there at night alongside that little creek. This is down on the Fanny Bay Road, and I think that's at Howard Springs. Bushfires on the side of the road were quite common. There's a lot of burning off goes on there. And that is these are some modern shots that I've taken on my Canon 400D back in 2011, and I'm planning to do a new video soon going back to Darwin in 2011 and showing you a lot of the shots that I took using a Canon 400D and using some decent equipment. So there you go, we're getting towards the end of it now, I think. This is, in the old days though, this was Edith Falls, and these was taken on the Retina, and there's a lady here, that lady on the right, Mrs. Hayho, her and her husband were the reasons I think I got into photography and getting serious about it, because they used to show slide nights after church, and I was just marvelled at the range of things they had. And this is back in 2011, so we're coming to the end of this now, I think. So I hope you've enjoyed this. This is back to Edith Falls, where I showed you before. This is the modern day shots I took in 2011, showing the difference in what you can get with a different camera, with the modern digital cameras these days, compared to that old one, which I didn't really know what I was doing with back then. Same area. There are freshwater crocodiles in there that don't bite you. And this was our little cat, first cat we ever had, getting ready to go back home to Adelaide. So I hope you found that interesting, and like if you like, subscribe if you wish. It just goes to show that when you first start in photography, you don't have to be a world beater, but you can grow into knowing what you're doing as you gradually get to know cameras and what photography is all about. So like if you like, subscribe if you wish, and I'll see you next time.